Hey everyone, welcome back to another CGH video. In this video I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about gambling and making money in the Diamond Casino update for GTA Online, including the optimal strategies for each game and the house edge when you use these strategies down to 100%. I'm your host Ryan, and by now you're probably wondering who I am. I'm a mechanical engineer, math enthusiast, and most importantly can count cards in casino blackjack at a professional level, with a large knowledge of all the games the Diamond has to offer. Now you know I know what I'm talking about, and with that out of the way, let's get this done. The most important concept for you to understand when I explain any of these games' fairness is house edge. The house edge for a game is the amount expressed as a percent of every bet that the casino expects to win in that particular game. If a game has a house edge of 50%, that means for every $100 anyone plays, the casino expects that that player will lose and subsequently they will gain $50 of it. If the house edge was that high in a real game, no one would play it, so they make it low so that over time you don't notice the game isn't fair. Either way, the games with the lowest house edge are what we want to play, and so I'm going to be telling you the fairness of each game in terms of house edge. The first game we're going to be talking about is Roulette, and although it's Mikey's favorite, it's certainly not mine. It's the worst game to play in the casino, and in my opinion is a sucker game altogether. The roulette in Grand Theft Auto is standard 00 American roulette and therefore has a house edge of 5.26%. That doesn't seem like a lot, but you will soon see as far as casinos go, it is. Roulette is a game that takes advantage of high numbers with a lot of factors to give the player many options to place bets that proportionally all pay the same. There are 36 numbers on the field, and the number 36 can be split in half to make red and black, odd and even, and the first and last 18, all of which pay 1 to 1. The bets that pay 2 to 1 all make up a third of the board in the dozens, and so on and so forth. The edge in roulette comes from the zeros. There are 38 pockets on the wheel, and with 2 of them being zeros that don't pay into any bet except their own, the odds of missing a payout chance entirely are 2 in 38, or 5.26%. Don't go betting on the zeros trying to make up for this either. They pay 35 to 1 like any other single number bet, and so you're still being paid for 36 numbers when there are 38 in total, the same proportion. You can never push this 5.26% in your favor in any way. This means the optimal way to play roulette is to bet however you think is most fun, with one exception. Never bet first 5 or 5 number as the game calls it. This is the only bet that has a worse house edge of 7.89% and is never worth it. It's a sucker bet. It pays 6 to 1 on 5 numbers, and since 5 doesn't evenly go into 36, the casino just takes the money off the top instead of giving players a bet with better odds than all the rest. A common thing that you will hear from other roulette players, or people who try to teach you methods of making money using roulette, is that there are betting systems that you can use that somehow improve your odds of winning in this game. You should try to avoid this because it simply isn't true. A great example is the Martingale betting system, which is a system where you bet on either red or black and double when you lose and keep your same bet when you win. If you want to get deeper into the math of why this doesn't work, I suggest looking it up, but essentially, your odds of suffering a catastrophic loss that lose you absolutely everything are proportionally the same as the very many small wins that you will earn playing like this. In a coin flip style game with infinite money to back your bets, this is still a net zero strategy. However, in a game like roulette, it's a really bad idea. You will still lose money at the same rate as in any other betting system, but oftentimes when you do lose, it'll be much larger sums than you expected to play in the first place. You can still play like this if you want to, but understand that it doesn't make your odds any better. The important thing in roulette is to just have fun and expect to lose a little money along the way. Next up is 3-card poker. It's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more difficult to explain how to play perfectly, but at 2.01% house edge, almost 3 times as good as roulette, who could complain? The version of 3-card poker offered at the Diamond Casino is pretty standard, and, as the standard game goes, there's 3 main bets, 2 that you put in the beginning, and 1 that you decide to play after you receive your cards. The first bet that the dealer will ask you to place is the ante, and this one's really simple. Always bet the ante, it's how you're going to be able to make the play. The next bet the dealer will ask for is the pair plus bet. Pair plus has a worse house edge than the ante bet, and therefore you should never make it. But it's important that you understand how it works so you can decide when to make the play. For context here, in 3-card poker, the hands you can make rank from worst to best are as follows. High card, which is just the absence of any other special kind of hand, your highest card. A pair, which is any 2 cards of the same value, 2 fours, etc. A flush, which is when all 3 of your cards are the same suit, say you're dealt 3 diamonds or 3 spades. A straight, which is any 3 cards in order, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 of a kind, which is when all 3 of your cards have the same value, 3 5s, etc. And a straight flush, which is when you have a straight, like 8, 9, 10, and also a flush, meaning 8, 9, 10 of spades, or 8, 9, 10 of clubs. Pair plus is a bet that pays out if your hand contains at least a pair or greater. Any pair, flush, straight, 3 of a kind, or straight flush will win you the pair plus bet, regardless of what the dealer has. Even if the dealer's hand is better than yours, you would still win pair plus. Now that you know the 2 starting bets, you're ready to play your hand. Place the ante bet and then decline to play pair plus. When the dealer deals you your cards, you should always look at them. Ignore the option to play blind. Playing blind isn't smart. The main thing you're going to be focusing on is determining whether or not to make the play bet. When you make the play bet correctly, the house edge on the play is better than the house edge on the ante. This is why earlier I told you to just bet the ante no matter what. You're not so much confident in the ante as you are just trying to unlock the ability to make the play. The way you decide whether to make the play is as follows. If your hand would have won the pair plus bet, always bet on that hand. That means if you have any pair, flush, straight, 3 of a kind, or straight flush, you should always make the play. In addition to that, you should always bet on hands of queen 6-4 or higher. Queen 6-4 is a hand that does not contain any pairs, flushes, straights, or anything. It's just a high card of a queen, the next highest card is a 6, and your last card is a 4. You should always think of your hands as your cards in order from highest to lowest, because this is how they score. If you're having trouble determining whether or not your hand is higher than queen 6-4, I like to imagine that each card is a digit in a 3-digit number. Each digit ranges from 2 to ace, and you can abbreviate the face cards 10 and ace with D in the tens place. That way, a hand like king 9-5 becomes king 95, or ace jack 7, ace jack d7. This means you are looking for numbers higher than or equal to queen 64. Queen 63, obviously lower than queen 64. Queen 64 just barely makes the bet, and queen 65, you're definitely good to go. Something like jack 98 definitely doesn't make it, but king queen d5 definitely does. You get the idea. When you average out the house edges of the worse ante bet and the better play bet when played optimally, you get 2.01%, and this is the number that I mentioned at the beginning. You still will never make money in the long run, but at least you'll be losing it almost 3 times as slow. The third game I'm going to be covering are the slot machines, and there's really not a lot to say about them, so I think I can get this one over quick. They have a posted 98.7% return rate, and therefore have an easy to calculate house edge of 1.3%. However, I should mention that since a lot of this percentage is locked up in very high payouts that have a very low chance of occurring, kind of like the reverse of the Martingale strategy in Roulette, you don't actually get to that 98.7% until you hit one of those big jackpots. All the way up until then, you're actually expected to lose a lot more. All of the machines have the exact same payout ratios and same payout percentage, so it doesn't really matter what machine you play. They're basically just all reskins of each other with different bet amounts depending on how much of a high roller you are. There's not really a lot of strategy I can mention while talking about slot machines. Kinda like roulette, it doesn't really matter how you play, but what I can say is you should take advantage of that reverse martingale effect if you can. If you hit a massive jackpot really early in your run, just stop playing and never touch a slot machine again. It's called getting lucky for a reason. You should enjoy it, and you should never try to get that percentage bogged down closer to a lower number if you can. If you want my recommendation on what slot machines to play, the Fame or Shame and Evacuator slots both have interesting bonus wheels, where when you get the second highest payout in the machine, you get to spin the bonus wheel for an additional prize. These were probably the most fun, and they're also pretty low stakes, so they're good for when you just want to kill a little time mindlessly in a lobby waiting for your friends. Now we're going to talk about our last table game and my personal favorite, Blackjack. The exact form of Blackjack in the Diamond Casino is 4-deck continuous shuffle, dealer stands on soft 17, double after split, no surrender, peak, Blackjack. There's also a 7-card Charlie rule in play, but it's barely even worth mentioning. It only helps you in about 1 in every 4,600 hands, and only accounts for a 0.01% shift in the odds towards our favor. But it does tilt the odds more in our favor, so we should take what we can get. It essentially works like this. If you can make a hand out of 7 cards that doesn't go over 21, you automatically win, no matter what happens. With all of those rules taken into account, we get a very nice low 0.21% house edge. That's right, when you play this game perfectly, it's almost 6 times as good as slots, it's almost 10 times as good as 3-card poker, and it's well over 20 times better than roulette. The object of Blackjack is to try and make a hand that comes as close to 21 as you possibly can. At the end of each game, the dealer will reveal his hand, and whoever is closer to 21 without exceeding it is the one who wins. If you and the dealer have equal value, your bet money is simply returned to you, and nobody wins. If you produce a win from your first 2 cards by getting the combination of an ace and a face card or a 10, this is called Blackjack, and you get 3-2 pay on this, higher than the 1-1 of winning in any other way. Now that you understand the format of the game and how it's played, it's time I start telling you how to play optimally. Since the decks are shuffled continuously after each hand, it is impossible to gain any sort of advantage by card counting, because card counting relies on both being able to have an awareness of what cards are left in the deck and by gaining penetration into the deck to make your bets more certain. Sadly, this method isn't going to work, and it's likely Rockstar made it that way on purpose. What you can do, however, is play according to perfect basic strategy. Basic strategy is the term in Blackjack that refers to playing in a way that makes the most mathematical sense in any given situation with the card total you have and the knowledge of the dealer's up card. Obviously, playing in this way is extremely difficult and very complicated. I can't teach you how to play perfectly in any reasonable amount of time for this video. What I can do is just build a custom basic strategy chart for this exact format of Blackjack and put it in the description. It is color-coded, easy to understand, and conveniently is scaled to fit perfectly in half your computer screen or on a mobile device. I guarantee you won't find a more accurate way of playing this particular format of Blackjack as in this table. You might find an equivalently good table, but it'll just be another way of presenting the exact same chart. If you can play a game of Battleship, you can play Blackjack like a supercomputer. Each row corresponds to a possible value your hand can have, including hard totals where the ace is a 1 or there is no ace at all, soft totals where the ace is an 11, and splits where both cards are the same and you have the option of splitting. Each column represents a possible up card the dealer can be showing. You will also notice that each cell that tells you to double down has a second lowercase letter in it that represents what you should do if the game doesn't give you the option of doubling down because you achieved that total with 3 cards or more. If you play perfectly according to my chart, you stand to lose 21 cents per $100 that you invest in the game. This makes Blackjack easily one of the most fair games that you can play in the Diamond. This edge is so low that on a $50,000 max bet at a high stakes table, you're only slated to lose an average of $105 per hand. This is the same disparity as the 500 to 1 payouts of the slots in the casino, except the house edge is lower and you get that lower house edge every single hand, instead of a much worse house edge all the way until you hit that 500 to 1 jackpot. You've probably noticed by now that I've been ordering the games in terms of house edge from highest to lowest. That should make you pretty excited for what I'm going to say about horse betting. You might think that the house edge on horse betting is 0% because Blackjack's is already so low at 0.21. You would be wrong. I've actually personally seen the house edge on horse racing be as low as -67% very commonly. -67% being 67% in the player's favor, or getting a full 2/3 back on our investment guaranteed. This is very profitable, very easy, and not really gambling at all at this point. As far as I know, I'm the only person I've seen who's applied this technique to Grand Theft Auto Online, but believe me, it does work every time. In order to explain how it works, I'll break down the process of what is called arbitrage betting. Arbitrage betting in sports betting or horse racing is the process of betting on every single outcome in an event in order to take advantage of an unbalanced book. A book, in terms of horse racing, is the list of payouts that a bookie composes that roughly reflect the percentages each horse has to win. The good news for us is, if the Rockstar developers were bookies for me, I would fire them. The book is the sum total of all of the implied odds of every payout. Extracting implied odds is pretty simple. You take the second number and make it the numerator, and you take the first number plus the second number and make it the denominator. So a horse that's even money, or 1-to-1, is going to be 1 over 1 plus 1, or 1/2. 50% of the time that horse should cross the line first, and that should give you twice your money, which makes sense. A horse that comes 1/3 of the time should give you 3 times your bet, a horse that comes 1/4 of the time should give you 4 times your bet, and so on and so forth. The discrepancy arises when the sum of all of these odds does not add up to at least 100%. This is because if all of the implied odds sum to 60% or so, that means that that race is supposed to only have a 60% chance of ever being completed at all. But you know this isn't true. Obviously the race finishes every single time. That means that extra 40% is hidden somewhere in the payouts for each horse. It could be that a horse that pays even money finishes more often than 50% of the time. Or it could mean that any random number of variables is going to fluctuate the horse's chance of winning to be more than their bet suggests. This is why we're not going to try and guess which horses to bet on. Instead, you're going to get a group of 6 people together and place perfect bets on every single horse to guarantee that no matter how the race finishes, you take advantage of this discrepancy. Let me give you the example of the actual horse race I saw in the game that tipped me off to this. About my second or so ever main event horse race, I noticed that the payouts were 4-to-1, 4-to-1, 15-to-1, 15-to-1, 24-to-1, 29-to-1. The 4-to-1 bets should happen at least 1/5 of the time, so that's 20% implied odds. There's 2 of them, which totals 40%. Both 15-to-1s should happen 6.25% of the time, or 12.5 total. And the 24-to-1 at 4% and 29-to-1 at 3.3 repeating percent is a sum of 7.3%. The total of all of these percentages is 59.8%, and that means that 40.2% is hidden somewhere in the payouts. All you would have to do now is do a bunch of math to calculate the exact bets that you should place on each horse to extract the most money possible in any given situation. This would be pretty difficult, but by now you probably already know me, and you know I have another Google spreadsheet to give you. This is a calculator that will provide you with all of the bets that you should place, your profits both in terms of gross sum and percent yield, the sum of the total bets, and a bunch of other nice features. It automatically updates and does all the math for you as soon as you enter the payouts for each horse. As long as the book total is less than 100%, the yield total will be positive and you will make a profit. Just get 6 people together and make bets as close to the bets that it tells you to make as you can. For instance, on the example I just gave, if on the first and second horses you bet 10,000, the third and fourth horses you bet 3,125, the fifth horse at 2,000, and the sixth horse at $1,666, you're expected to be paid out $50,000 no matter which order the horses finish in. However, the sum of all of these bets is only $29,916. That way, if the group bets $29,916, but no matter how the race finishes wins $50,000, as a whole, the group profits $20,083, or a 67% yield, which is the house edge I mentioned in the beginning. Obviously, since you can only place these kinds of bets on main event horse races, the group is expected to gain about $20,000 every 5 minutes, assuming that each race is this good, and many of the ones I've seen are. This $20,000 is split among 6 people, and therefore for your time it's still not worth it over just doing heists or import-exports. However, I'll definitely take shouting exotic names with my friends over doing another mission for the 100th time or driving a car another 5 miles to some rich guy's house. Another advantage it has over doing those sort of things is it pays in chips and not money. Since the chip rate is limited, you can theoretically use this method to build an infinite bankroll that you can use to gamble at any stakes you want in any game. This is where something like a slot machine can become very powerful. If you could make up for all of your losses with horse racing and then eventually just hit a $2.5 million payout, then cash it all out in one burst, you essentially profited $2.5 million for nothing. Of course, in the long run, you still lose money doing this, just cashing out the chips is the best method for making money. However, it is pretty fun to win some of these games, and getting an infinite number of chips and not being limited by the 50,000 every 48 minutes is pretty fun. Just make sure that while you bet with your group, the people who win rotate towards the bottom. This way, anyone who gets low on chips will take the bets that have a higher likelihood of winning, and therefore, it'll be more sustainable. I'll also tack on to the end of this that pending further research on whether or not the horses actually finish proportionally to the payouts they're supposed to, or in other words, the races aren't rigged in any way, you don't actually need multiple people to do this. In theory, as long as the book total is below 100%, any bet you place on any of the horses in any amount will have a net positive percent yield and a negative house edge. In order to future-proof this method, if you can't get a group of 6 people together, just bet with the amount of people you have from top to bottom. If you only have a group of 2, bet on horses 1 or 2 in the same amount the calculator suggests. If you have a group of 4, bet on 1, 2, 3, and 4, etc. This ensures you still have the highest chance of getting paid out, even though you're subtracting the lowest amount from your total bets. You will lose a few of the races, but proportionally, you will also be betting less, and therefore, the percentage yield will remain the same even though there's less players. You may win less races, but it still is the same amount of money in the long run. The only game I haven't talked about yet is the Lucky Wheel, and that's because it's basically not even a game or gambling at all. You don't have to pay anything to spin it. It's just pure profit that you should collect whenever you can, sort of like the bunker or your nightclub. The odds of winning each prize are posted for you every time you make a spin, and there's some pretty neat things you can win in the mystery section. These can range from super useful things, like discounts on websites and special vehicles, to more mundane items like snack and ammo refills. There's obviously no optimal wheel strategy or house edge, and therefore you should just spin it when you can and have fun. In fact, I think that's the most important thing to take away from any of these games. At the end of the day, the Diamond Casino, much like a real casino, should only be played for fun and not really for profit. There's always going to be more efficient ways of just pulling pure profits, and so you should treat it like a good time waster or fun thing to do with your buddies. Alright, that should about cover it. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of all the different games, and I hope you find the tools I made useful. I certainly do. Again, the links to each tool are in the description. Just make your own copy and edit them however you see fit. If there's anything you think I missed, or anything else you'd like further explained, leave a comment about it. Maybe I can help you out. Be sure to like this video if you did enjoy it, and subscribe if you're new. CGH really does make some of the best analytical content for Grand Theft Auto Online, and that's why I only trusted them when contacting them to make this video. So be sure to check out their other content if you like this. I'd like to thank Mikey for giving me the opportunity to make this video and editing it for me and getting the clips. I had a lot of fun. I'd also like to thank Makula and Damien for teaching me everything I know about gambling. You know who you are. With all that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching, and for everything gaming, you know where to find it, right here at CGH.